why Sophie had to take the law into her own hands, and why Nicola's high and dry after splashing out on a grand design. This is the story of an employee who began work at this factory as a man, left as a woman, took a case to the tribunal for unfair dismissal and won it, and has complained to the Ferret that the trade union failed to support that fight. Sophie Morris now lives in Cardiff. 4 years ago her life was very different. She lived in Glynneath and worked as a production planner in a car parts factory at Resolven. But 2006 was a turning point. She took on a new identity.
I'd worked for JTech for 2 years. And only 12 months I was living in Sophie whilst I was working there. But in that time I'd actually had a very good reputation and excellent appraisals.
And I say, only 12 months you've been living in Sophie, because before, who were you before?
Before that I was Gareth Morris.
Yeah.
And I was working at JTech as Gareth Morris at that time, and I was employed by them as Gareth Morris.
For 5 years she'd been a member of Unite the Union. Because of problems at work, she turned to the union's Swansea office for support.
I was undergoing grievances within work, which I felt the behaviour shown towards me was unnecessary and inappropriate. And so I brought the union in at that stage. But then it was at 12 months, which was 21st of December, I was actually sacked, which was the last working day before Christmas.
Sophie felt she'd been doing her job to the standard she'd been praised for in staff reviews beforehand, so why had JTech sacked her?
It was called an irretrievable breakdown in working relationships. I'd never had any written warnings or verbal warnings. It was just a straightforward dismissal.
Switching from being a man to living as a woman was not an easy thing to do. Sophie felt it was the right thing to do, but it was a challenge.
It's always going to be a stressful one, and there's an awful lot. It's not just a case of putting on a skirt or something. It is something which you go through a process of medication and things.
Do you feel happier and better living as a woman?
I feel much better within myself, much happier within myself, yes.
Unite arranged for Sophie to attend the offices of Leo, Absey and Cohen in Cardiff. The appointment was only a week before the deadline for making a claim to the Industrial Tribunal. The lawyer had bad news for her.
He couldn't see any options for success for me during that case, so therefore he would not represent me, and therefore he couldn't recommend to the union for legal representation.
From that day on, were the union helping you in any way at all to cope with your dismissal?
No, the union were very dismissive of me after that. It was a case of they just didn't want to know.
Another solicitor, consulted and paid for by Sophie, said she had a case. She couldn't afford to pay for an advocate at the tribunal, so prepared the brief herself.
I went to the tribunal on my own. I had to prepare my case completely from the start. I had to prepare my statement, as well as prepare all the questions I was going to ask for any witnesses during the evidence.
The hearing was held over 13 days in spring and summer last year. Sophie made 9 claims in all. 6 were dismissed, but the 3 key ones succeeded.
I won unfair dismissal, sex discrimination and unlawful harassment from the company and my manager.
Why did you come to the Ferret? What do you expect of us?
I want to explain to the union that, and I want other people to know about the union as well, and understand that even though they're paying subscriptions as I was for 5 years prior to my case, it's a case of they're not always going to be there to represent you, and I think it's wrong that a union should be like that, and I would like them to explain. The Wales office of Unite the Union here at Transport House in Cardiff referred us to their Assistant General Secretary for Legal Services in London, Paul Talbot. After 10 days we got this message. We are concerned that commenting on this matter without Ms Morris's specific consent would raise issues of data protection. Furthermore, the union treats issues about the legal services that it provides to its members confidentially. However, we can confirm that the union is content that it dealt with the request for legal assistance appropriately, and they go on to say they can release further details if they have authority from Sophie Morris. Well, Sophie's just told the union, I've already informed the Swansea office of Unite they can talk freely on my case and myself to any members of the media. And she ends this email, I've rung the union 21 times without response and 15 letters. You won't speak to me, so please speak to HTV, ITV Wales.
Today, Unite told us they only provide legal representation when they're advised there's a reasonable chance of success. When the solicitors said there was not, she was unhappy, and the union was trying to obtain a second opinion when she left the union. Sophie says that would have been too late. Unite say they're committed to tackling discrimination, and she was treated precisely as other members are.
Financially, it's cost me in respect of having to pay for another solicitor in order to grasp some sort of start to my legal campaign. And also it's cost me emotionally a lot as well, preparing for something like this when you really don't know where you're going with it, to be honest, because you have no past experience to draw on, is hard work, and to understand it is